Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the summary for the day of 1105 for the 4th of March. And it's recorded on the 5th of March, which is actually my birthday. So anyway, spent the whole day doing coding, and I ran out of energy to do this SITREP. So I'm going to be pretty low energy, so pardon me. And but quite a number of major changes. We're going to start off from the south, and then we're going to go anti-clockwise direction, just to mix things up. Over in the southern flank, at the Kherson front, we have shelling reported at Sadove as well as Mikhailivka, according to the Russian Defense Ministry. So these are nothing much. This is very usual. Geolocation of a airstrike on Ukrainian forces at Pridniprovsky was noted. So that's all. So far, it looks like this rumored Kherson crossing is not going to happen for now. Over the Zaporizhia front, the Russian forces continued their Zaporizhia seemingly offensive, limited offensive, I would guess, with fighting reported in the same strategic locations at Kayamsky, Marishebaki, Novoandrievka, Novodanilivka, Sharifny, as well as Huyai Pole. So there's also some other airstrikes being noted all over the rear positions at the north of Huyai Pole, at Omernik, I think it's Omernik, and Yehorevka. So the battles over here is definitely ramping up. Although I still feel like the Russians are still doing shaping operation is still not the real assault, not the real offensive per se. The information is coming from Ukraine, Russia, Ukraine, Russia. So most of them seems to be Ukraine. So this is the Russian ones, and then I think these are the Ukrainian ones. So let's see how this continue to play out. And before I move on, there are some rumors, online on the X, which claims that Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, have given the green light to the military to lift all operational restrictions that they have set on themselves. And supposedly the Russians is now going to launch, from now on, they're going to have a free reign to do whatever they want and go and launch their big arrow offensive. I would say tentatively take that with a pinch of salt, and even if it's true, that does not necessarily mean that the Russians is going to break through easily, because the Ukrainians are not just sitting there and do nothing. So let's wait, but this is the latest rumor that we have right now, and I'm not sure if, let's say it's true, I'm not entirely fully sure what is the reason for the change. Is it because the Americans is cutting military aid for now? Is it because the Ukrainians have lost a critical amount of military capability that the Russians felt like it's the time? Or is it because the Russians are running out of time? Maybe the economy is starting to hurt from the sanctions, and they need to really wrap up the war, or any other reasons. It could be any sort of reasons. So let's take it with a pinch of salt for now. It is still a rumor, I would say. Until there is official statements, I will not take that into real considerations for now. Over in the Velika Novosibirsk front, we have fighting reported at Rozdone, Odratne. Koma is probably just shelling, and also at Bulatsky and Pravine, which is over here, Pravine. So Pravine is mentioned by both Russian and Ukrainians, Bulatsky by the Ukrainians. Koma is of course usually by the Russians, Odratne is by the Russians, and Rozdone is by the Ukrainians. So this is Russian, Ukrainian, Russian and Ukrainian, and then now this is Ukrainian. So this is the sources. This geolocation is armored vehicle getting hit. So Ukrainian forces definitely is still in this area here. So the battle continues. The front line here, there is a major defense line allegedly along Vasily line and north of Dnipro and here. So if the Russians do break through from this area here, let's say they do break out, then I'm not entirely sure what the Ukrainians have in the rear position. So this is pretty dangerous for the Ukrainians. Over in the Andriivka front, we have some major updates. Based on the geolocation, we can ascertain that the Russians have taken most of Andriivka. So of course, this is a bit of a judgment call, but given the fact that how the front line look and the geography here over here, it's just impossible for the Ukrainians to be in all this position. So the geolocation largely confirms that the Russians have taken most of Andriivka. However, battle continues at Constantinople and the Russians are now pushing towards Oleksievka. Oleksievka mentioned by the Ukrainians, Andriivka is mentioned by both sides, and Constantinople is by the Ukrainians. So the Russians seemingly is still focusing on Andriivka with the mention of Oleksievka and Constantinople by the Ukrainians. So there's a Russian airstrike on Abkhazia. So definitely the things is still very hot in this area here, and airstrikes does comes without warning. Southern flank of the Pokrov front, there's nothing over here. By the way, this is Pokrov and this is the Pokrov front. And then Donetsk is over here. So we are very far away from that now. So over in the Pokrov sector, we have a fighting reported towards Oleksievka. Sorry, is it Oleksievka? Oops. Sorry, it's Serhievka. So it's fighting is reported towards Serhievka, Udachny, and Uspenivka. The Ukrainian claims that they have taken back Uspenivka. So this is a Ukrainian claim. Otherwise, this seems to be this case. Russian forces has been geolocated at Bischany, affecting some slight change, and Ukrainian forces in the latest geolocation. So I think I need to move the whole map here a bit so we can actually talk about this. So the Ukrainians have been geolocated on the eastern part of Shevchenko. This is one of the latest geolocation, signifying the Ukrainians on the counteroffensive. However, the Russians are being noted to be attacking towards Pokrov. So this is definitely the one of the big thing, and this is a claim. So the Ukrainians, from later as you watch on, you'll probably also realize what I realized is that the Ukrainians seems to be on a major offensive phase. So a lot of places across the Ukraine war, the Ukrainians are on the offensive, and they are pushing very hard. So definitely something to watch on. So the Ukrainian 2025 counter-offensive might actually be on right now, because there is already quite a number of occasions that I've already mentioned that the Ukrainians seems to be on some kind of a major operation. So all this does point to the possibility that the Ukrainians are indeed pushing. So let me go back to this. Uspenivka is mentioned by the Russians, Serhievka by the Ukrainians, Udachny by the Russians. So those are all Russians. Pokrov by the Russians. So which one is the Ukrainians again? I'm so confused. Only the Serhievka one. Uspenivka? Oh, it's by the Russians. So I'm already lost. This is a Ukrainian report towards Serhievka. Udachny by the Russians, Uspenivka by the Russians, and Pokrov towards Pokrov by the Russians. So we zoom in a bit on this latest development. Ukrainian forces are storming towards on the eastern part of Shevchenko. Allegedly, this is the mobile assault column. So this is definitely an attempt for the Ukrainians to capture back certain grounds. So I think this is definitely some kind of a positive development for the Ukrainian supporters. So hopefully you guys have some good luck because things are not going to go very well very soon, as we have projected it looks like the Ukrainians may not last for another 6 months. It doesn't matter how much arms and equipment will be provided, unless it's super high tech and super game changing. If it's just the usual stuff, the Ukrainians, even with the ammunition and equipment support, I think they're going to start to collapse after half a year. So over in the Minokhrad sector, we have the Russians attacking Novobalivka, Lysivka, Tusk Minokhrad, and Epromin. So Russians are reported by Russians, Ukrainians, Russians, Ukrainians. So Russian, Ukrainians, Russian, Ukrainians. So Russians, Ukrainians. So you can see it's more or less the same place. They are reporting more or less the same thing. Yeah. So that's about it. They are basically, like, this front and then this front. Effectively, that's what they're talking about. So moving on to the northern flank. In the northern flank, we have only one fighting reported by the Russians at Yelizavetivka. However, geolocation of Russian forces at the Zelene Pole and of Baranivka, it was noted in today's latest geolocation, and Zelene Pole actually affected change. This frontline change basically confirms, because of the geolocation invalidating Ukrainian claims, confirmed Russian capture of Zelene Pole. In fact, I should actually note this as confirmed. So Russian forces captured, whoops, I can't type Z, Zelene Pole. So 5, 3. So we have the flag for the Russians. So we can confirm this right now because of the geolocation. So congratulations to the pro-Russian guys. Hopefully you don't get too much emotional damage from all these Ukrainian advances. Of course, I think that you guys are very confident. Anyway, so over in the thorax front, this is another one that I was mentioning about. Ukrainian forces geolocated inside Zabalka and just off one of the hills, which means that the entire Russian presence at Shchebenivka has been invalidated, with Ukrainian forces punching very deep into Russian lines. So this is noted. The Russians, however, is being reported to be on attack at Thorax and at Dashne. Of course, this is by the Ukrainians as usual. So the Russians didn't mention anything about this. So this geolocation, along with the previous one over here, definitely is looking really interesting. And the Ukrainians could potentially pincer the Russians and cut off a huge chunk of Russian forces in the northwest of Thorax, if they are able to manage it. So let's see how the Russians react to this. And I also want to note that I do seems to observe like a lower energy by the Russian forces in their fighting in these past few days. I'm not sure if it's related to the rumor, because if there's an order coming down that they're going to have a free reign to do whatever operations that they want, then it may cause some kind of a reorganization or revamping of their plans, which will reduce their operations. That's a possibility. Shelling is reported at Pleshievka by the Russians, reported by the Russians, and then we move into Bakhmut front. At the Bakhmut front, we have fighting reported towards Tupovsky and towards Shevchenko. This mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry and the Ukrainian Defense Ministry. So this is Russian, this is Ukrainians. So let's see how this goes. Shevchenko is this micro district over in the south of Chasivya. So Shevchenko is mentioned by the Russians. Russian Defense Ministry is have to be here. So anyway, Stinky now have a flower in it, because stinky stuff is good fertilizer, and then the flower appears. So I mean, it's purely logical. I don't think I have to go into any analysis to that. So over in the Sivers front, at the Sivers front, we have fighting reported over at Sivers and Verkhovno-Kanyamsky. Serbianka is also mentioned. These all Russian reports. This is probably just shelling, I guess. Fighting reported at Verkhovno-Kanyamsky, and this probably shelling over at Sivers. Because I start to doubt that the Russians are anywhere near to Sivers, because it's been too long. So let's see how this continues. We move into the Liman front. At the Liman front, we have fighting reported at Yampolivka, Zareshne, as well as Dibrova, with the information coming from the Russians, Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians. So which means only Zareshne is mentioned as by the Russians, Yampolivka Ukrainians, Dibrova is Ukrainians. So let's see. Let's see. The Dibrova, is like occasionally being reported, and in the northern half of the northern flank of the Liman front, we have some major updates. In the previous SITREP, I did mention that all these reports about fighting at Novomihailivka, Katerinivka, and Nove is a bit unusual also for Zelena Dolena. And I hypothesize that the likelihood that the Russians have already advanced, especially with the Russians already captured Novolyubivka, at least based on their claim. We have some corroboration over the past 24 hours. Geolocation of Russian forces have been noted off Ivanivka, with the Russian forces making this advance in the direction of Zelene Dolena. So the Russians also reported attacking at Kharkivka, and they are shelling Karpivka. Reports of fighting at Novolyubivka is mentioned as well. So Kharkivka is mentioned by the Ukrainians, and then Novomihailivka by the Ukrainians, Russians, Ukrainians. These, of course, Russians, Ukrainians. So which means this is I also forgot already. Something like this. Something like this. That basically they are all mentioning about some kind of major Russian operation, in the westerly direction. So let's see, how this continue to perform and play out. But I'm glad that we have some corroboration of what the hell is happening around here. Because this geolocation definitely helps to bring some sense of what is happening. I believe that this area here is also under Russian control. So moving on away from the Liman front, over at the Borova front, we have fighting reported at Bohoslavka as well as towards Shikivka. Mentioned by the Russians and the Ukrainians. So this is mentioned by the Russians and this is mentioned by the Ukrainians. And so that's about it for the Borova front. It seems really quiet. And we move into the Kupiansk front. At the Kupiansk front, we are fighting reported towards Pischani and towards Petropavlivka. Petropavlivka is mentioned by the Ukrainians, and Pischani is by the Ukrainians. So both of these is Ukrainian reports. So that's all. I think, yeah, very quiet as well. At the Voreshna front, some major interesting information. Ukrainian mapping, Deep State UAE has claimed that the Ukrainians have retaken the entire forest north of Zapadne. Ukrainian forces has been geolocated west of Zapadne as well. These are armored vehicles getting destroyed. So this was destroyed while the Ukrainians are on the offensive. As I mentioned, the Ukrainians are on a major offensive across all of Ukraine. I'm not sure how wise is such an operation because they are stretching themselves really thin, and but they do what they want. I don't think it matters in the long run. I think in the long run, the results are already like the conclusion of the war is pretty much a given that the Russians eventually is going to win. It's just a matter of how much they're going to be conquering. So yeah, over in the northern flank of the Voreshna front, Kamenka was mentioned. It's mentioned by the Russian Defense Ministry report. The Kamenka is over here, so it's mentioned. So that's all. How the attack comes, in which directions, we have no idea. So it was not mentioned at all. So we move into the Kharkiv front. At the Kharkiv front, we have mention of fighting reported Voschansk and Lipsy. Information coming from the Russian Defense Ministry, whereas Voschansk was mentioned by the Ukrainians as well. So so that's all. This is very, very standard Kharkiv front updates. Nothing particularly special about that. Geolocation of artillery shelling at near Borovki, which is kind of weird. The distance from the border is around 14 kilometers. Yeah, it's somewhat still in range of a major, big artillery pieces. So, yeah, a bit of unusual to see artillery being noted. Over in the Kursk front, in the southern flank, we have fighting reported at Kurilovka and Goevo. This is usual. Anyway, as usual, the Russian the Kursk front updates is all Russian reportings. So no, just take note. All Russian Defense Ministry. Over the Sudzha region, we have mention of Goncharovka and Sudzha. Fighting is reported at Magnovka. So that's all. Kurilovka is already mentioned just now. Interestingly, we have no more of these reports of Gogolevka, Rubenskina, Oleshnia, Zaulenchenka. Like all these shelling reports are not mentioned. So that's interesting to me. It might also be a suggestion that the Ukrainian forces that has been gathering has been withdrawn, maybe to other front line to conduct their offensive operations. That's a possibility. Kozacha Luknia is mentioned by the Russians as shelling. In the northern flank, we have the Russians attacking Cherkasskoye Parashnoye, Staraya Sorokina, Malaya Luknia, and frontline changes was noted in the east of Cherkasskoye Parashnoye, which was mapped by the Ukrainian mapping depicted UA. Geolocation of a Russian airstrike, a FAB 3000 hit the northeast of Novaya Staraya Sorokina. So no, very interesting, I would say. So over in the western flank, we have fighting reported at Luknia as well as Lebedevka, with the Ukrainian mapping conceding that they have indeed lost basically whatever the Russians have claimed to have taken. So this actually increase the credibility of the Russian mapping. So that's it. I think that's all for the Kursk front, and that's probably about it. I don't think I missed anything else. So as I mentioned, the rumor is a little bit disturbing. What happened to my map? Load. Okay, we just ignore the map. We have already finished our reporting. So the rumor is interesting about this expansion of operations. I'm not sure if it's real. We will know over the next 2 weeks. Looking at how the Russians behave on the battlefield. Like for at least the past 24 hours, it doesn't look like much have changed. Of course, in recent times, we're talking about some change in terms of like Zaporizhzhia offensive, the Voreshna offensive. But it felt nothing like those big or arrow offensive that we have expected all war, all of these 3 years. Of course, the Ukrainians did try their big arrow offensive. The Russians didn't seem to be doing much of that, except for the Adrievka front, where they attack and push into become a Pokrov front. But I wouldn't exactly say that is a big arrow offensive. To me, big arrow offensive takes a lot more risks. The Russians are not taking that much risk. But of course, that's not denying that the Russians took severe losses in quite a number of assaults. So this is known, this is just part and parcel of the war. So anyway, we shall continue to monitor and see how these continue to play out. So thank you for watching. As you can see, my eyes is struggling to open. Because I spent a whole day coding, trying to do something for DPA. But yeah, it wasn't very successful so far today. Still in the early stages of doing whatever I'm doing. So when it's done, I will let you guys know, but no, not yet. So that's it. Happy birthday to myself. And thank you for the happy birthday wishes. For those that have wished me, and that will be wishing me later in the video, in the comments below. So thank you guys, just in case I didn't have a chance to see them, and I'll see you guys in the next update.